We will call the Williams County Board of Equalization for June 3rd, 2025 to order, and I'll turn it over to Leah.
Corey, did you want to take roll of who is here?
You know, we should probably do that. Okay, go ahead and take roll.
Chris,
Yes, here.
Barry,
Here.
Steve,
Here.
Corey,
Here.
Bo.
Here. All right, we have a quorum, and now we'll proceed. I'll turn it over to Leah.
Tax Equalization Director for Williams County. I am here today with my staff, Christy Gutierrez, Ashley Cragen, and Shelby Evans, who is back on the computers. And we are here to discuss the 2025 Board of Equalization for Williams County. I'm not going to read everything exactly. I'm just going to hit on a few key notes. If you guys have any questions, please stop me in the middle of my presentation. I have no qualms with that, and I'd love to answer those questions when they come up. The Williams County Assessor's Office has prepared this 2025 assessment report for Williams County. The specific requirements for property assessment are established in the North Dakota Century Code. The law requires that all real property be valued at true and full value, which is defined as market value as of February 1st assessment date. The 2025 assessments are based upon real estate market trends of Williams County property taking place from January 1st to December 31st. The starting point of the assessment of real property is the true and full value for property classified as residential or commercial. Market value is the price a property would bring if it were offered for sale in an open market for a reasonable length of time and purchased by a willing buyer from a willing seller, both parties being prudent and having reasonable knowledge of the property and neither being under undue pressure or under any undue pressure to complete the transaction. We as assessors are historians. We measure the market based on sales, which have occurred previous to the assessment date. Assessors do not create value or predict what the market will do. Rather, the assessor's job is to follow that pattern set by the real estate market. Sales occurring between January 1st and December 31st establish that assessed value for 2025. Values may have increased or decreased by the time the taxpayers actually receive their tax statements in December. Sales that occur within January 1st to December 31st are closely scrutinized by the assessor's office. Evidence suggesting a forced sale, a sale of additional personal property, a sale to a relative, or anything other than an arm's length transaction requires that that sale be discarded. We at the assessor's office are charged with setting estimated market value for tax purposes at the actual market value. The relationship between sale prices to the estimated market value is called a sales ratio. We make every effort to ensure that each class of property in the county meets this target as consistently as possible. In this way, we assure an equitable distribution of the property tax burden for all Williams County taxpayers. State statute also requires that the assessor's office send a notice of increase to all property owners whose property value increased by 10% and $3,000 over last year's assessment. There were 1,033 notices sent for 2025 compared to 1,173 sent last year in 2024. If you look at page 3, sale prices for residential property increased a little over last year's, with the average sale price being about $306,000 during the 24 season, compared to $301,000 in 2023. These sales have been assembled into a sales ratio, which is attached within the report, and residential property in Williams County sold on average about 10% higher than they were valued. The overall sales ratio for residential property was 93.34%. As we are required by the state, we'd like to be within 90 to 100. And so individual areas of style or construction were adjusted, indicated by their sales. Sales were analyzed also by location, age, style, story. And so you'll see the map area stratification below. And most of the areas did go up this year. We did have that 10% across the board increase. And then we see that Tioga Mobile Homes, Tioga Pre, and Williston area manufactured homes are areas that did decrease this year.
Leah, can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
You said that we like to be between 90 and 100. I thought we were required to be with.
We are required to be within 90 and 100. If we are not, the state will come back behind us. We strive for 90 to 100, but sometimes there are instances where we are out of alignment. And so then
Okay.
we have to work with the state to figure out what we need to do to correct that.
Correct. Okay. I
When-
just wanted to make sure the state's telling us we have to be here.
Yes,
So even just because it's not our choice to like to be, we have to be.
Correct. We are required by the state of North Dakota to be within that 90 to 100.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, there may be a question from the audience.
I think we'll wait and we're going to wait till she gets through this. And then, so if you could just mark it down, then we'll let you come up.
But just one quick question before we move on. You said there was a 10% across the board.
Correct.
On how come?
We saw that the cost to cost replace new, we did see that increase. And so we can see that in the underlying values in our sales. So that's why we had to have that 10% increase. But we do then look at each individual classification and see if we need to adjust them either down or up based on that 10% increase already. So just because we did a 10% across the board does not mean that everybody received a 10% increase. There were some that we increased that 10% because of that replacement cost, but sales indicated they only needed a 2% increase. Or there were others that you see a significant increase where it was the 10% plus an additional 5, 10, whatever that sale classification classified as. Page 4, we talk about residential true and full value increased $60,873,588 for the year, and over $22 million of that was from new construction. Manufactured homes are assessed on the permit system when the individual owner does not own the land but only owns the mobile home. The major difference between manufactured homes and real property is manufactured homes pay taxes in January for the coming year, while real property pays in December for the previous year. We currently have 723 homes on the permit system in the county. We lost 38 this year. Page 5 talks about our commercial sales ratio. The State Department requires a sales study of at least 30 sales to create a market study for commercial. We only had 10 sales in 2024 for commercial. In the absence of that adequate market, we also included 2022 sales and 2023 sales. Because we are going back, those previous year sales were adjusted to the 2024 true and full value. And we are seeing an overall sales ratio of 95% in our commercial. So you can see our map area stratification, see rural, and see Tioga did increase this year. We did have a decrease in rural steel. Our commercial true and full increased $4,675,865, with $14 million of that being new construction. We continued to partner with Thomas Y. Pickett to assess the industrial sites and saltwater disposals within the county. Under advisement from our legal department, the values of the structure is placed on the parcel of land that the disposal sits on, and the company is entered as an interest party in the tax system. That is to protect the property owner as well as their interest in that site. The income approach to valuation is applied to our apartment buildings in Missouri Ridge and Tyrone Township. Questionnaires regarding income and expenses were sent out to each apartment owner. Missouri Ridge did respond with data, and we do include this in the city model and then use the city's model to then go against our Missouri Ridge complex. Tyrone remained with no change, as there are some extenuating circumstances with that facility. City of Tioga apartments have been removed from the income model They have been assessed using a cost to build sales hybrid model. And then vacant land. In 2024, there were 25 vacant lot sales, and the ratio for vacant lots in the county was 94.08%. Page 7 is about our agricultural land. Agricultural land is not valued in the same manner as residential or commercial properties, meaning ag land is not assessed at true and full market value. Ag land in Williams County is digitized by the GIS system and is valued by soil productivity, with adjustments made for fenced pasture, saline, alkali, and inundated lands. Williams County's cropland decreased about 4% this year, and non-crop decreased by 1% this year. The Eggland formula has 3 major components for the formula. It's the cap rate, Eggland production, and your cost of production index. I apologize. So for the capitalization rate, we calculate the 10-year Olympic average of mortgage rates on the ND Ag loans from the past 12 years. And NRCS does all of this for us. They do it for all of the state of North Dakota. Eggland production is determined by annual gross returns for cropland and non-crop. A 10-year average is collected and the high and low are dropped off, creating an 8-year average. Cost of production index is a 10-year average in collected input costs, including fuel, fertilizer, equipment, wages, taxes, etc. This information comes from the USDA Economic Research Services, and it's the prices paid by farmers. Page 8 shows you kind of the ag land valuation history in dollars per acre. So we've had slight increases over the year, and then we do kind of tap out a little bit. Page 9, our recommendations would be that we recommend that residential property be left as a class at the level presented. In review of the worksheet below, we are at a 91.02% of market and would need a change increase of 9.86% to reach the 100% value that the state requires. But we are within that 90 to 100%. Page 10 is our commercial, and we would recommend that the commercial property be left as a class presented, with the commercial property ratio being at 92.85%, with a change needed to reach 100% of 7.71%. Page 11 is our agricultural overall ratio and information. So it gives you the overall that we had for 2024 and what the state had for 2024. And then it also gives you what our new numbers for 2025 are. Every city with a population of more than 5,000 is required to develop individual stats. Oofta, sorry. The City of Williston report was presented to the city, and we do have that report here if you would like to look at that. At the very front of your book tonight, or today, there is a map showing the assessment areas within Williams County as assigned to the assessors in our office. Unlike other counties within the state, our office is a city-county combined office with no local assessors. CAMA is our computer-assisted mass appraisal system, and it promotes equity and reduces human error. And we use it for all of our commercial and residential properties within the county. Sidwell is a company that we implemented in 2021 to assess agricultural land in Williams County. This program allows us to map out different soils in the county and areas that qualify for modifiers, which are water, alkalinity, saline, and damaged, and then pasture. Mapping these soils and having those modifiers allows for greater accuracy within those classifications.
So quickly, if you
Yes.
don't mind, just going back to when you went to through the valuations, and then there's the percentage to reach 100%. You're
Yes.
not recommending that we increase to get to 100%.
No,
No,
No.
you're just stating that we're
within
We're
our
within the
window of
10%.
90 to 100.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
One quick question too. For residential, for 2024, our true and full was actually higher than 2025?
Yes.
Okay. Why is that? When we're raising values by 10% across the board,
Most likely we lost something in demolition, or we could have, it could have moved classification. Do you have any thoughts?
Yes, so basically the thing to remember.
you get a
Sorry. The thing to remember is that 10% increase, that's only our base value. And our base value is still trended with the market. Even when we put that 10% increase, we did have a class of property that still required a decrease below that. And so we're not necessarily always expecting to see, and that's probably the part of assessment that is the hardest for people to understand. That base rate is literally just what it would cost to replace that building. We still trend it with sales, and the sales market in some of these buildings still indicated, even though it was higher to build, they were still selling for lower. And that is the ultimate goal, is to make sure that we fall kind of in line with where those sales are happening. And so you're going to see that in some scenarios, especially in older buildings, or especially when the sales market hasn't caught up to the cost to build market. It's just one of those things. We did see decreases even with that 10% increase. And so it's just a matter of which class of property. In this scenario, the class of property that was really hit with that decrease was that steel, rural steel, which if you look in the county and you break out where our valuation comes from, rural steel in the county is pretty significant. It's a large portion of our valuation. So when it saw a decrease, we are going to see that decrease at the top line.
and that's just on the commercial side typically, right? Because you don't see a lot of steel. homes.
Correct. Right. We actually have a few, but very few. And those barn dominiums did not decrease.
For sure. Okay, so both commercial and residential, to be clear, overall, true and full is down year over year.
For this year, yes.
For this year, yes.
Thank you.
Lee, is this a good time to let Mr. Barbeau come up and ask his question?
We
Or-
could certainly, if you'd like.
Or do you want to ask, or did she answer any as you were going? Okay, that's fine. Come up, introduce yourself for the record, and speak into the mic, please.
My name's Rory Barbeau. I'm a county resident, city resident. I still don't understand the valuations on these, and that's all I'm trying to get to is how we get to where we're at. You said it's replacement cost, which we can all argue is a variable nobody can track. Your replacement cost might be different than Steve's replacement cost, correct? Then you're going to the sales. See, I thought I was at the city meeting, so I brought my city stuff, but I'm at the county. The sales are, what you have some of these properties listed as, the comparable sales next to them are quite a bit less. So I don't know how you get to these numbers, and I'm just trying to figure out how you, I'm on a house on Rose Lane, 1520 Rose Lane. They just sold the house down the street for 400 and some thousand. This is all in the last year. They just sold another house for 410, 3 doors down. This is a comparable house. I would say square footage, everything. You guys have assessed it at 525. I don't see how we get to these numbers.
Certainly, and I could definitely answer to that. I can understand your concerns. And even though you're not at the city meeting, the county still does have oversight over those valuations. We're happy to talk about them.
Okay.
So the biggest thing I want you to understand is when we are looking at the valuation on your home, so you are right. What it would cost one person to build a home is not the same as what it would cost a second person. And that's going to come from multiple factors. It's kind of one of those things, if you're going to self-contract, of course, you're going to save money over the person who is not going to. We do not take that into consideration. In order to be fair to everyone, we assume everybody has a subcontractor, has a main contractor.
Yep.
We take that into consideration just because our ultimate goal here is not to figure out what your home would sell for. Our ultimate goal is to figure out how the tax burden can be spread the most fairly, the most equally. And so what we do then, and this is at the guidance of the state as well as most assessment organizations across the world, is we take that base value that we have come, that we apply to everybody to make sure everybody's fair. Then we take your home and we decide quality of construction. So just to basically say, okay, let's assume that, we're talking linoleum versus vinyl versus hardwood. Okay, we take those into consideration. We have a factor that would change that cost to build based on that.
I got a question.
Absolutely.
How do you know what's in all these houses?
So there's a lot of things that we can take into consideration. For a good chunk of the houses, somebody has done a review of the home, whether that be from a walk by, talking to ownership. We've seen them sometimes listed online. Sometimes we have to make assumptions based on the exterior. You can tell things like roof pitch, window size, eave overhang. There's a lot of things that go into the cost to replace a home that you can assume from the outside has carried over to the inside. It's not a perfect process. We do the best we can with the data we have. Sometimes we do make assumptions and hope that we are right, unfortunately. So then we take that, then we take the age of the home and we decide how much depreciation is in that. So for an average home in the city of Williston, we consider what you would say a 40-year lifespan. What that means is that if you did nothing to the home, in 40 years it would be depreciated. That means you're not replacing the heater, you're not replacing the water heater, you're not replacing the roof, no new windows, okay? Every time you replace something like that, you make the home act younger than it actually is. So we make a factor adjustment to that to change what we call the effective age. Okay, then what we do is we take, so for Rose Lane, this is where it's going to try and hopefully explain to you. I don't take only homes on Rose Lane. We take every home with a similar building style, similar age in the city of Williston. So then I take all of those sales, and since they've all had that base value done exactly the same, we take the median sale. Okay, that's going to help us prevent outliers, either somebody who really wants the house because it's right next to their grandma, or who really doesn't want the house because it's right next to their mother-in-law. Okay, we're going to look at those different things.
Yep.
And determine those outliers and where they go away. That median ratio. So let's say now that home sells, that median sale, which could be
Median, mean, and average and all these.
not quite average, the median, the actual middle. We do not take average because the average is still influenced by those outliers.
But if you're taking a 2,500 square foot house on 6th Avenue, 2,500 square foot house on Rose Lane, and one on Hill Court,
Sure.
you're averaging the three houses.
We're not averaging, no. And keep in mind when we go and look at this, it's not specifically a 2,500 square foot home. We are talking style and age.
Right, but
And so the square footage has been determined, and that's a factor at the very beginning. It's no longer a factor when we're going into the sales comparisons.
square footage means nothing in all this.
Only in the very beginning when we're talking about original cost to replace.
And this is the county too, same formula?
Correct. It's across the state and in a lot of parts across the world.
And
So-
one thing that you offer too is if somebody does question the value,
Absolutely.
you'll offer to go in and review the property.
Absolutely. And keep in mind, our data is only as good as our values are only as good as the data we have. If we have made an assumption on your home, let's say that you have really great eaves, but then they put linoleum and formica inside. Okay, we've made some assumptions maybe from the exterior. We could be wrong on one of those factors, which would be your quality.
So if, do they just go to your office? We don't have to do this at the meeting, but if somebody has a problem with your evaluation,
Absolutely. You call me, you come into our office. We are always willing to go ahead and talk to you about it. We can show you. So one of the things we can offer you is if you want to come talk to us, I can show you what we have picked up on your home, what assumptions we've made, and then you can decide if it's in your best interest for you to come and see it or not. Because the bad thing is if I come into your home, if I now know you have Italian tile, that is something I have to fix. I
I
can't ignore that.
I'm
So
all right with that.
yeah, and so that's the thing is if I come in and I do determine we've undervalued your home, I have to fix that too.
What's your name?
I'm Christy.
Christy?
And just to be fair, when it comes to the city of Williston, your home is not assigned to me. You'd be dealing with one of the other assessors, but we are all equally
No,
willing to
what
help.
beach area?
Okay, and we could talk about it and we could definitely look into that.
And you're at, just give me.
577-4555. And we are right upstairs. So you can come in to us, see us, you can call us, whatever you would like for us to do. We are always happy to make sure that you understand the process and that
Yep.
we are being fair,
No,
because that is
that's-
ultimately what we're
That's all
trying to
I'm
do.
trying to get to is the process.
Absolutely, I completely understand.
Okay. So we were at the comps part of it.
Yes.
They're not all equal. Go on.
Right. So the problem is we do mass appraisal, meaning that we're trying to treat everybody as equal as possible. Sorry, my voice keeps flitting in and out, but we're trying to keep everybody as equal as possible. So we take that median ratio. So let's say the home sold, that median house, it sold, and our assessment's only 83% of the sales price. So the state says we need 17% increase in order to be in compliance. What that means is we
90
have
to
to,
100.
correct. And to keep in mind, we try to shoot for as minimal of an increase as possible to stay in compliance. In this scenario, we tried to get everybody to right around 91%. But in order to hit that 100% across the board, all of those houses now have a 17% increase. Now, I say 17%, but keep in mind, all of those factors that happened, depreciation, rounding, there's so many things, you're not going to see a 17% increase except on that median house, that one house. But you're going to see a roughly 17% increase
So is
across
that
the board.
highest we gave out was 17%?
No. Unfortunately, I think the highest we gave out was 27.
You're gonna
this
have to
year.
get closer to the mic because they can't hear you online.
Oh, okay.
You don't have to push the button, but you gotta be
Yeah.
closer to it.
I think a 27% was the highest we saw. That's just an example. 83% is actually what we did in hotels, but it's just an example of
And there's no cap on 3%, 5%, 10%?
that is correct. The state does require us to be between 90 and 100%. And if I have to raise you 75% to do that, they do not have anything giving us any leeway to say that we don't want to do that. I would love to not raise people 27%. I think that's horrifying.
Okay, so can I ask this?
Yes.
Now, I mean, you've got everything from her.
Um,
Can you move it up to her office or the
Yep,
office
I should-
upstairs?
I
Is
can
that
do
all
that
right?
for
Just,
sure.
I mean, we've got a whole bunch of pages to get through and I'm not
That's
trying to
fine.
kick you
No.
out,
No.
but I just
know-
wanted to,
I know how you are.
well, I know, we've known each other a long time, so,
I'll take a break, but as long, if I
Yeah,
can get up, that would
yeah,
be
cause
great.
that way
I
if you
get
can
everything
sit
done.
down and sit down in the office.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Okay, I think we have one other. Okay. Got it.
Page number 13 shows your assessment summary, which is your total percentage of value overall based on those 4 categories. A lot of the next slides are just going to be informational for you. Page 14 is your real property true and full values. This is the historical changes in all classifications of those 3 classes. Page number 15 is your summary of privileged exemptions. These are any entity receiving an exemption that is approved by our office by application. Some examples of charities are the Stray Sanctuary or our Ranch and Rescue Retirement Ranch. A couple of examples of lodges would be Fort Uford or Fort Union, Buffalo Trails Museum, the Clay Target League. Some low-income rentals would be Ray Citizens Housing and Tioga Lutheran Social Services.
One question that came up last year, and I think it's important maybe to bring it up every year, but the churches that have commercial operations in them,
Yes.
can you describe how they get assessed?
Okay, I'll hand that over to Christy as she is the one that handles those.
Hi again. So when we do things like churches, for instance, they have whether it be a daycare, a coffee shop, rent space, however that works out, that portion of that building is actually non-exempt. That is assessed, regardless of where they put those funds to. The fact that they have a profit earning enterprise is taxable. So what we would do is we go through the process. We do that replacement cost new again. We determine what area they have exclusive access to. And that area is broken off and they do not get an exemption on that portion. So to give you an example, Life Church, I think their exemption is for 97% of their space because that coffee shop is non-exempt. They also have a daycare in there, which actually runs off of its separate exemption, but it's broken out separately and they apply separately.
Thank you.
Thank you. Page 16 is talking about our property tax basics. And this is just give you an overall of the 3 primary elements of your tax system. Budget, valuation, taxation, those all go into a formula. And you can kind of see where it estimates a bill and kind of gives you an idea of what the breakout is for a 250,000 residential home and what a consolidated mill levy would look like on that property.
Just something for the future maybe, but
Yes.
if we have a 300 and did you say the average was like 306
306.
maybe in the future, our estimated tax bill could actually be a real home, you know, because
Okay.
it's like, yeah, if it's only $200,000 home. Well, I don't know anybody that's, it'd be more of a realistic
Yeah.
estimate.
Okay. I can certainly do that. That's a great idea. Thank you. Page 17 shows your mill levy history for the city of Williston and for Williams County, and kind of how it has increased or decreased over the last several years. Next couple of pages, you will see your residential sales ratio. Then move on into your commercial ratio, and then your ag land values. I'll give you a few minutes to look at those. I do not believe I actually sent those out to you prior.
So these are the sales that were used for the valuations?
Correct. These are the actual sales that we used for our analysis this year.
Going back to the question Mr. Barbeau asked about median versus average, and median, you remove the top and the bottom, right? The outliers?
So in the median, we would actually not remove outliers, but because you're using that middle, you assume outliers are on both ends. They're just not influenced. When you do an average, those outliers come in, and they do have an influence on your average. So when we take the median ratio, we literally array the ratios and take that middle. So if you have 300 sales, we're going to use between the 154th and 155th ratio and figure out that's the exact ratio we use. If you average them, you would actually, that outside influence has much more impact on it, because if you have a ratio, somebody went off the rails and the ratio is 2,500%, which we actually do see on occasion, that is going to have a much bigger impact on an average than it is a median.
Okay.
Yes, Corey?
No, I'm just trying to wrap my head around that because it's still, yeah, I got you. I believe you.
Sure. No,
Just
absolutely.
not sure I understand it.
Absolutely. So just think about it. If you have an average and you have three numbers, 1, 3, and 5, okay? You add those all up, your total is 6, you divide it by 3, you come out with, what, 2? I added those wrong. 9. You come out with, your average is 4.5. Sorry. If you do it in the median, that 5 is so much further off than the 1 and the 3. If you do the median, it's actually a 3 instead of a 4.5. It's just, you're going to get a flat out different number. And that 5, really, that 5's an outlier. 1 and 3 probably aren't. And it's just, you're going to see a much bigger impact on outliers when you do an average than a median. So to keep it as fair as possible, that median is used by every jurisdiction out there when you do assessments, because it always is a fairer, more representative number of your actual sample than doing an average.
I had to look it up.
Coach Knutson would be upset that I don't know math better,
Yeah.
apparently.
Yeah,
If it makes you feel better, we get tax reps all the time that call us, and they don't understand the difference between a median and an average either.
yeah, the average is the sum of values divided by the count, while the median represents the middle point in the sorted data, if that helps.
Well, see, if you'd have just said that.
My mistake. Next year, we'll change those terms for you.
Thank you. I
You got
appreciate
it.
it. No, it does. It makes sense. No, it does. Thank you.
If you have 100 sales, you take number 50,
Correct.
49, whichever, yeah.
Right. And so, and if you've got an odd number, you're going to take you're going to take the average between the two middles. If you want to make it even harder.
Can we confuse you more? Okay, if you flip past your green divider, I think it's green. we can now look at number D and E. So, public hearing, I guess. Is that? Yes, that green. Yeah. So you have your table of contents for our protest corrections, formal protests, those things. Right. Sorry. I'll make sure they're not both green next time.
She meant lime.
Lime. Yes. Thank you.
Okay, so we are at the place for the formal protests, unorganized townships and cities, correct?
Correct.
And we do a public hearing for this.
Yes.
Okay, I will open the public hearing for the formal protests, unorganized townships and cities. So is there anyone here in an unorganized township, which you are not, because I know where you live? But would this be a place that he could talk about his house in the city?
No.
But if you're gonna do a question, again, this is the best part of my job. You gotta walk up here and get to the mic and say, Roy Barbeau again. Okay. Just for the record, we gotta have it in the mic.
Rory Barbeau again. My one other question, acreage lot size has no bearing on these assessments.
It does to an extent. So that's part of your replacement cost. We start with a bare land value. And those are, land studies are done, which would actually value your land separate from the house that it sits on. So that's at the very beginning when we're doing that replacement cost new. It's also what would it cost to replace the land.
How do you assess the land? I guess I don't get it.
Sure, absolutely.
If-
So,
If you're on a, let's just say a 1 acre lot,
mhm.
your house covers a 1/4 acre. The rest is grass.
Mm-hmm.
What's the replacement value on grass?
So basically what you're really looking at is what would it cost you to buy another acre in the county? What would it cost to buy an acre of land? And
You already have that acre. If everything got totally wiped out,
you
you
would still have the acre, absolutely,
build right back up.
absolutely. But it is part of that base value. Basically, we base those values on what it would cost to replace that acre. If you had to purchase it, if you had to purchase an acre in the county, what would that acre go for?
So same thing in the city. If you have a 1/4 acre lot and everything gets wiped right off it,
Sure, that land value would still remain and it would still be on the assessment. You would still assess that that 1/4 of an acre or whatnot, and it would be valued based on
and that's assessed in the house value.
it just right before the house value, correct? But it's in that replacement cost new, that very beginning value before we trend those with sales.
Okay, thank you. Is that now? I have a public hearing open for unorganized townships and cities. Is this a question that goes to them? Yeah, but I need to know what township you're in.
I'm your mother's neighbor.
Right, so you are in the city of Williston.
Yeah.
Okay, let's finish this one and then I'll let you ask your question, okay?
All right.
Okay, so we're the formal protest for unorganized townships and cities. That's a second call for anybody that has that. Okay, right, Leah, the cities, Williston is not included in that.
No, option E on the agenda is where we'll have public hearing where anybody can come up. They do not have to be in that unincorporated area on section E.
Okay, so that's where I'll get you, okay? So third and final time, formal protest for unorganized townships and cities. The public hearing is closed. So now there's findings and motions at the bottom of that page that we will need to.
Actually, you don't have to do those findings and motions because there was nobody here to present any corrections or formal protests.
Okay. Just so I know, where is E?
Sorry, I
so
said
can tell
E,
him-
and that's right now, but once this hearing is closed, you can open a public hearing for non-unorganized, for all the rest of the county. Basically, right now, we're holding the local board of equalization for those townships because they do not have an acting board. So you're sitting as the local board for those unorganized townships at this point. We're not technically in part of the county yet.
I just
Okay.
didn't understand the end cities part, so
I didn't either.
pardon the confusion, but
Yeah.
when he's wanting to talk about.
That was
I-
my question.
Yeah.
That was where I was confused.
We are currently on unorganized, so that includes Golden Valley, Nesson.
Correct, correct. No, no,
and Wheelock City. That is why cities is in the title. Because we do have.
But
an
Wheelock's not a
unorganized-
city anymore.
That's why
still
it's
an
unorganized.
unorganized city.
Yeah.
All right, so make sure I don't miss him. Okay,
Yeah.
somebody please make sure that I don't miss, and he'll get to speak. Okay, so right now we're gonna do the corrections for unorganized townships.
Correct. And we don't have any at this time.
So we just fly right on by.
Correct.
Okay, this is getting easier. All right, formal protests, all townships and cities.
Correct. Now this is where he would come.
All right, we're gonna open the public hearing for formal protest, all townships and cities. I hope you understand what just happened, because I don't.
No
But
idea.
introduce yourself and then go ahead and let us hear what you have to say.
Perfectly okay. Kelly Harrelson, and I'm at 408 14th Avenue West. I'm not here to talk about the valuation of my property. That's not why I'm here. But what I am here to do is to lay out a scenario where if this increases at the current rate it is, we're all going to lose our homes. I had a 14% increase in the value of my property this year. So I annualized it out 10 years. And the value of my property, if it increases at the current rate, my value of property will be $1.4 million for that home in 10 years. 10 years. You ladies are in a bad situation. I know you are. However, we had an opportunity in November to eliminate property taxes in North Dakota. It got voted down horribly. If that vote were held next month, I bet it would pass with flying colors. So there's got to be something done. I know there's formulas in place, and we say, well, we don't have any control over this. We better get control, because even at your 10% baseline, I would be at 1.01 million for that home. That home's over 100 years old. I don't know how you value it. I had it appraised not too long ago. They had a heck of a time finding comparable homes in Williston to even compare it to. So, this is an issue that we need to deal with as a county, or else people are gonna be priced out of their home. I can afford it regardless. I own a company. I have money. But I'll tell you right now, there's a lot of people that could not afford to pay the increases that we are going to see if we don't get a handle on this. We can't annualize this stuff 14 to 15% a year. This is insanity. What are we getting for it?
And I do understand your concerns. I'm a homeowner too, and I agree. Housing prices in the area are getting a lot higher. The thing to keep in mind is, realistically, we're really not going to see a 14% year over year. It doesn't happen, especially on a 10-year rate. We're not going to see that happening. The biggest thing I want you to recognize is that typically when you see a 14% increase across the board in housing, we do not see a 14% increase in taxes, because the taxes are not linear with increases. That's not the way they work. A mill levy, all the mill levy is going to do is, in that end, potentially, if we see an across-the-board increase, you're going to see a mill levy decrease, which takes and absorbs a good chunk of that 14%. Not always, but when you have an across-the-board increase, it does. And so that's the biggest thing I want you to say. I recognize where you're coming from. I do completely understand. Nobody wants to see somebody lose their home over a valuation increase. We do the best that we can with what we have. We are not trying to figure out what the house is going to sell for tomorrow. And we are definitely not trying to keep values high, because we interpret data, we don't create it in that scenario. So the reality is, do you ever see your home selling for $1 million in the city of Williston? And I'm going to tell you, I don't see that happening in 10 years or maybe even 20. I do see housing values increasing, and it is something that is alarming, not from a tax perspective, but just from somebody being able to afford housing perspective. And it is something I know the legislature is working on. I don't have a good answer. I don't know that there is a good answer, and I know they're working on the best one they can come up with.
One of the issues we run into is we have to be between that 90 and 100%, or the state comes in and changes it, and then they go right directly to 100%. Not that that's not an excuse, but they are still controlling what we're able to do at the local level. And so, you know, one of the things that we're trying to do is the builder buyer stuff to get more homes, which should hopefully alleviate and put some of these homes back in the price they should be in. Because that's what we're running into right now. There's a lack of housing. And I know Steve, he's been working really hard on that with Lindsay and to do those things, to build them, to try to get more homes, to try to get it so it's reasonable.
Right.
So, I mean, I know that's probably not the answer you're looking for. I know when you said, I mean, they brought up the picture, my folks' house is the old chicken coop from where your house is at. So, go ahead, Steve.
I just wanted to make sure to say one thing too, and that the valuation has nothing to do with how much your taxes are. It's the budgets. And this is a common misconception that everybody has, is that my valuation's going out of control and so are my taxes. Well, Williams County is the lowest of the big 6 taxes, the largest population centers in the state of North Dakota. Williams County is the lowest property taxes by all of all the big 6. The budget meetings are where you want to come with your concern, and I'm not belittling you for associating. It's a common thing. We all associate the valuation with our taxes, but the budgets are what set what your taxes are.
Well, the budget is never going to decrease. It will never, ever decrease. If a nuclear bomb went off over Williston, the budget would not decrease at all. It will always and forever.
Yeah, and what I'm showing you is the graph of the mills that the county has collected in particular, because ours have, in 2016 were 45.24, and in 2024 they're 28.52. So our mills have gone down.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, but I mean, it is just so you know, that's as long as the government entities hold their line on their budgets, they don't ride the mill up as the valuations
Right.
increase. And so that's
And that's
important.
what Steve's trying to explain, that our job as elected official, I mean, as one of you, is to see what the county needs for budget. And we don't ride the value of the mill. We look at dollars. It's like, these are the dollars we need to run the services that we have. And then we adjust our mills accordingly. And as a county, and since I've been on the board, we either maintained the dollar level or decreased that dollar level that we bring in with the mills that we ask for. So, like, I wish you guys had a copy of this. One of the pages in our book shows like the average home, or the $250,000 home, the taxes collected from that home. Going through all of those different entities that run mills and get to the total dollar amount. And there's schools, there's conservation district, there's all these different entities. Williams County is one of those. Every one of those entities can raise or lower their mills to get the dollars that they want. And on my taxes in particular, the majority of my taxes go to, was it District 7, School District 7. And depending on their budget, that's where the majority of my taxes go.
And there is some aid coming, and this is important. We all share your concern. We're all property owners, and we all feel the same way. But one of the things that affects District 7 is, and Chris, you probably can speak to this a lot better than I can, but they at one time have only been getting 25% of their gross production tax impact dollars. I think there was a movement in the legislature. I don't know if it's changed or not, but hopefully that will gradually increase, and District 7 will get more of those gross production tax dollars than they have in the past. And that will help offset what we have to pay as individual property owners to the school district. Because again, they're usually the largest portion of your property taxes.
Okay, one more question. So I went online and I printed up my county valuation document, and it says my home right here was inspected And I'm assuming it is on this date.
No. So unfortunately, that is very deceiving. You're absolutely right. So it lists your home as inspected. Those notes are actually put in by the original lister when they were put into our KEMA system, which would have been in 2013, I believe. The date you're looking at the top is the date that report was generated and uploaded. It is nothing to do with when it was actually looked at.
All right, that's it.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments in the townships and cities' formal protests? Third and final time, any comments? So that public hearing is closed. Do we need to do anything there?
They did not ask for anything to be done, so at this time, no. I believe that there is no reason to make a motion or anything on those properties. So if we switch over to page 4, these are the corrections that our office is bringing to you to have a vote on. If you have any questions on any of those, please feel free.
So are these because of you know, we missed something in the past, or is this like they've changed things on, or a little bit of both, I suppose? Or?
It's a little bit of both. We had some that were land corrections. We had some that we found something while we were going through our notes. We had local boards that moved to move a property out of alignment, so we're bringing that back to you to ask for it to be placed back in alignment. We have privilege exemption applications that were not approved or were approved. And just general property corrections that we found throughout our analysis that did not make it to the first. And then if you see attachments A and B, attachment A is Williston area mids. We found that there was a error in our analysis and we needed to correct these, and these were unable to be taken to the local board to have corrected. And then attachment B is detached structures. We made a correction there as well after a property owner did call and have a conversation with us.
Or some of those corrections, I know there were lots in Harvest Hills and in that area, Fair Hills and Harvest Hills that were, the valuations were elevated. And I mean, can you talk a little bit about that as well?
I'll hand that over to Christy because she's
Okay.
the one that handled that correction.
Sure.
So what ended up happening in Harvest Hills is we were doing that land study. We review sales on an annual basis to verify that we are keeping up on those land rates. Lands are a little harder because you're taking a vacant land sell in order to apply it to improve properties. And what ended up happening in that is that one of those vacant sales that I had used in my analysis, we found out after mailing, was actually not an arm's length transaction and therefore did not meet our criteria. That caused the value I had set on those lots to be inflated. Is the only way to explain it. When we discovered that error, we were wrong. We had to fix it. And so that is what happened in those. And Harvest Hills, Fair Hills, you're looking, Jonathan's Landing, anything newer subdivisions, newer infrastructure, curbs, kind of those areas are all valued on a similar model. Those were all affected in that scenario.
And I bring that up not to belabor it, but I bring it up to show that you guys have, you know that you can make a mistake and you can correct it, and it happens. And so
Absolutely.
everybody's human, and sometimes these calculations, or you find out more details about a sale, like you said, it was an arm's length and it affected everything. So thank you. I just wanted to make sure that you guys get some kudos as well.
Thank you. We do pride ourselves on being accurate and fair. And yes, we unfortunately are not infallible.
Okay, so there are any other questions on the 23 corrections that are listed? This one, I'm sure we'll have to do a finding and a motion.
Correct.
I move that a finding be made that the correction items numbered 1 through 23 listed above, as noted in the minutes, have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization. And I move that the 2025 true and full values of correction items numbered 1 through 23 listed above, as noted in the minutes, be adjusted as recommended.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion. Final time. Any discussion? Roll call.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. If we skip on over to page 15, we will talk about our Williams County farm resident exemption corrections. This list of 10 properties are properties that did not return a statement of farm gross income or their application was not received. We are required to have those applications and that farm gross income in our office for them to be approved for the exemption. So this list is asking for them to be placed back on the tax rolls. And I will need a finding and a motion for these as well.
So are they just stuck with that for the year then, or can they come in and submit them after we say you're,
We are always willing to, if they bring that paperwork in, we will do an abatement and correct it for them. But at this time, because we are moving into the regular assessment season and we're moving away from our actual value setting, we need to make sure that we are putting them on the roll as of this date because we do not have that paperwork in house.
I guess I knew the answer. I just wanted to say it out loud.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions on these? What are the wishes?
I move that a finding be made that the correction items numbered 1 through 10 listed above, as noted in the minutes, have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization. I move that the 2025 true and full values of correction items numbers 1 through 10 listed above, as noted in the minutes, be adjusted as recommended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Discussion? Third and final time, discussion? Roll call.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
The next two townships are townships that held their local Board of Equalization meeting, but despite numerous requests from our office, the meeting minutes have not been returned, and therefore the assessment rolls cannot be found equalized. We ask that the Williams County Board review the assessments and find the values of property in Ellisville Township and Scorio Township equalized or make changes as deemed appropriate. I do have those books available if you'd like to look at them.
What is the issue?
I really can't tell you. We had a hard time even getting Scorio to plan their meeting. And they have still not returned book or worksheet or anything. Usually we can call them on a regular basis. And we have several of these townships that do this. We have to call them several different times to make sure that they get their paperwork and their books back to us. But Scorio, for whatever reason, just did not see fit to return theirs. Ellisville, this has been an ongoing issue. I think this is the third year that we have had this issue with Ellisville. I'm not quite sure what's happening out there or what's going on. We're trying to get a hold of them, and we call everyone on that board. We don't just call the clerk or the supervisor. We do try and call everybody.
And the impact to the people that live in those townships is that they have no representation
Correct.
at that level.
Correct.
Okay.
Anything in either of those two townships earth shattering? I mean,
No, I don't believe so.
Nothing different than what happened in the rest of the county.
Lee, are you wanting a motion on those?
No, we don't need any motion. They're actually included at the end of the book in all of
Okay,
our findings.
that's what I was just gonna ask. Are they at the end or are we
Yep,
doing
they're
it
at the
now?
end. We've
So,
included those as
no
part
other
of our-
questions on those? None? Okay, let's move.
Okay, So page 19 is our homestead credit percentages and the number of applications. So we had on real property, we had over 106 applicants for homestead credit with a $534,000 value. No manufactured homes currently have homestead credit. And then in the city of Williston, they have 242 applications with a $1,530,000 value. I do have a finding on this that I will need.
I move that a finding be made that all homestead credit applications have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Thank you. Page 20 is our summary of disabled veterans credit percentages. We have a total of 54 applicants with a $290,000 value for that credit. As you can see, we have anywhere from a few that are at 50% to over 25 that are at 100%. I do have those applications on hand if you did want to see them as well.
I move that a finding be made that all disabled veterans credit applications have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Thank you.
Page 21 is a summary of our privileged exemptions. This again is just a repeat of the information previously in the report, giving you a detailed list and value of each individual classification with a total of 35, sorry, brain stopped for a second there, $35,348,000 in value that is exempted.
I move that a finding be made that all privilege exemption applications have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Page 22 is a about our farm resident exemptions. This year, the assessor's office approved 323 farm resident exemptions. In the past, it has been strongly felt that the farm resident exemptions be uniformly administered throughout the county, and and we have been instructed to follow up and account for all farm residents in the county. And so that's why you saw that list of ones that needed to be put back on the tax rolls. Is we are following through with those directions. So I do have a finding and a motion to approve those other 323 applications.
Move that a finding be made that the farm residence exemptions for Williams County have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes. And I move that the Williams County Board of Equalization instruct the Williams County Tax Equalization Office to verify that all farm residences located within Williams County either have a signed exemption form on file or have an assessment of record.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Steve,
Yes.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. Page 23, for the note of transparency, we try and list our properties for you to see that we are in alignment with the rest of the county and how they are being assessed. Any questions on that?
Yep. Is there something that we can do for you, the one person we haven't talked to? Hang on. If you have a question for us, can you come up to the mic? Introduce yourself first and then ask your question, because we're right at the tail end of this thing and I don't want to miss somebody.
I'm Keith Johnson. My tax went up live on the farm. My tax went up because I got a mobile home, a double wide instead of a single wide. And I'm 81 years old. Is there a age limit to this or not?
No, there isn't. Where is it at? Can we?
I'm a retired farmer right south of Wheelock.
South of Wheelock?
You know what Wheelock looks like.
Or yes, I do.
Should have had a farm residence exempt application. Well, I know, but there's a retired farmer category. Yeah.
Mr. Johnson was never actually on the on the farm resident exemption application, and it is our office's rule that we do not allow them to go on as a retired farmer unless they were first an active farmer in that homestead. Is the state that requires 1 year? Yes, the state requires a 1 year in an active farmer classification before they can move to the retired. He does have a old homestead on the farm that is currently in as vacant, but he does have a mobile home out there, and those did have an increase of almost 13%, I believe, this year.
I mean, so, but have you never filed for farm exemption for your home? I mean, you lived on the farm forever and you've never applied for it?
Not that I'm aware of.
So, okay. I mean, so that because he never applied, he can't apply as a retired?
Correct.
You have to qualify for 1 year as an active farmer in order to move to the retired category.
Do you want to go back to farming for a year?
Not really.
You know, is there a homestead tax credit? I mean, what options does he have?
So homestead credit would be an option based on your income level. So if you make less than $70,000 a year, there is a homestead credit option that we could offer you. That's unfortunately about it unless you were to be active. And the problem with currently starting as an active farmer is that you would have to have Schedule F on your taxes in order for that even to be an option, because you have to be able to qualify at 66% of your income comes off the farm. So unfortunately, it's harder to go back in the past and qualify you than it is to move forward.
So the homestead tax
So
credit.
yeah, I was going to say, if you want to stop in the office after the meeting, they could talk to you about the homestead tax credit, and hopefully that would help out.
And Dana is the homestead credit specialist. She's actually up at the desk right now. You could even go up and speak with her right now if you think you qualify for that. And she would be happy to help you get that paperwork. And it is not too late. We could help you out with that right now.
The farm has been there since 1903, and I've been there all my life, so whatever that means.
Well, and I mean, this obviously is the random loophole that we never anticipated, because I mean, I'm surprised you haven't applied for that farm exemption
Unless
ever.
my wife did. She passed away 6 years ago, and I hate paperwork.
Well, because I mean, you should know, like if you've been paying taxes on your home, you know, they would have assessed your home just like they are these others, and you would have had to pay taxes on it, unless your wife filed for it. But then you would know that because that would be under her name, or it's by property.
It would have been under his name, and we would have that note in our system. I am more than willing to run and check the old card to see if the original home that's on the property was under the exemption for farm, and see if at the point he moved into the manufactured home, if he was still active. The key thing with retired farmer is you have to retire within the home that you're applying for the exemption on. So if he was active in the mobile home at the time of retirement, yes, I can continue that application and that exemption. If he was not, and he was actually paying taxes because he fell off, then he would have to qualify as a new farmer under the 66% on that manufactured home to be able to fall into the retired.
Looks like the home went on in 2019. Mobile home.
So most likely not. But I can certainly check.
Yeah, Mr. Johnson, I go up to the office and see. I mean, the other thing is a qualification for beginning farmer. I mean, in order to be a farmer and file a Schedule F, I think you only have to have like $3,500 of farm income. So, I mean, there's more than, yeah. So you can start all over again, but talk to these gals, though they're the experts, and figure it out.
And just as a point, beginning farmer and active farmer, unfortunately, are two different categories. He would have to qualify as active farmer in order to move to retired. You can't move from beginning to retired.
That's
I'm-
not fair, because if
I-
you're smart enough to retire that quick, that's a good move.
No, I agree. I agree. Yeah, unfortunately, it is one of those that the loophole is really tight.
Okay. Now we are to our findings.
Yep, page 24.
So do we want to just start down there and then go right across? All right, let's do it, Barry.
I move that a finding be made that the commercial, residential, and agricultural property assessments in Williams County, as equalized by the local boards of equalization and the Williams County Board of Equalization, meet North Dakota statutes, guidelines, and the state board of equalization as shown by the residential and commercial ratio studies and the adjustment worksheet.
I move that a finding be made that the commercial and residential property assessments within the city of Williston as equalized by the local board of equalization meet North Dakota statutes and guidelines of the state board of equalization as shown by the residential and commercial ratio studies and the adjustment worksheet.
I move that a finding be made that the assessment rolls, statistical data, spot inspections, mobile home ratio study, and local board of equalization minutes have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
I move that a finding be made that the supplementary abstract of assessments, the game and fish abstract, and the abstract of Board of University and School Lands have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization and find them proper as presented or corrected as noted in the minutes.
Thank you. I move that a finding be made that the protests and the corrections and the changes as noted in the minutes have been reviewed by the Williams County Board of Equalization.
I move that a finding be made that the overall assessment rolls for 2025 for Cow Creek Township, Golden Valley Township, Hoffland Township, Nesson Valley Township, New Home Township, Blue Ridge Township, Bone Trail Township, Ellisville Township, Scorio Township, and Wheelock City unorganized have been reviewed and find them proper as assessed or corrected as noted in the minutes by the Williams County Board of Equalization, sitting as the local board of equalization.
I move that the Williams County Board of Equalization, sitting as a local board of equalization, declare the assessment rolls for 2025 for Cow Creek Township, Golden Valley Township, Hoffland Township, Nesson Valley Township, New Home Township, Blue Ridge Township, Bone Trail Township, Ellisville Township, Scorio Township, and Wheelock City unorganized, equalized, and as assessed or corrected as noted in the minutes.
We can do all three of these at the same time, correct? Okay. I move changes to be made as noted.
Nice work. That was a long one.
I counted these. You know, we started on page 1 and I counted them out, so I would get that one.
I move based on the preceding findings and the thorough review of the assessment rolls and statistical reports, the Williams County Board of Equalization declares the Williams County assessments for 2025 equalized as assessed or corrected as noted in the minutes.
And then we just need a second.
Correct.
I'll second it.
Moved in second. Any discussion? I have a discussion about finding number 1. No. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Corey,
Yes.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Barry,
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Last but not least is the establishment of the date and time for 2026 equalization meeting.
Looks like June 2nd to me. And this worked pretty good doing it right after the commission meeting instead of waiting. So, June 2nd at 9 a.m. sounds like a great idea. Does anybody want to make that a motion?
I move that the Williams County Board of Equalization shall meet on June 2nd, 2026 at 9 a.m. in the commission room, 9 a, yeah, I said a.m. Okay, in the commission room of the Williams County Administrative Building.
There's-
Second that.
Okay, moved and second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Bo,
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Barry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Corey?
Yes.
That's it.
With that,
Good
we
move.
will, meeting is adjourned.